This was the part that drinks the water. That part, we call it the roots. Can you say roots? Roots. Roots. Does anybody have the picture of the roots? Dana, look, do you see the part of the roots?
Yes.
What's that part? What does that part do?
Drink.
It drinks the water. Mira, Lorena tiene la raíz, ¿te fijas? Mira, está creciendo la raíz abajo de la tierra. ¿Y qué hace la raíz?
Toma agua.
Toma el agua para que la planta crezca. Muy bien.
The approach or the principles that the state has acknowledged and builds its foundations upon is that the home language serves a very important purpose in the child's overall development and serves as the foundation for a second language or English language acquisition. So in ideal circumstances, we would promote both. Very intentionally, very systematically, supporting home language development, while also recognizing both the capacity of children and the benefits of introducing the second language during those early childhood years.
Who's been around you?
Am I the sun?
Yeah.
Then what planet are you?
Mercury.
You're Mercury?
What we try to provide children is a real bilingual environment.
有写着什么不同的字，对不对？所以呢，就好像拼图一样，你们可以帮我拼出来吗？
我们是不是要做地？
So children can interact with both teacher in the classroom and get opportunity to use the language, practice the language.
Mercury go around fast or slow?
And also our co-teaching model make children believe that two languages can work very well and two languages can be used in the same place, and also the people speak different language can work together.
Something to do as a farmer. Let's do this, farmer. We're raking, farmer. One of my aides is a Spanish speaker, so she's always speaking Spanish to the students.
Okay, un caballo? Okay, aquí está el caballo.
The other aide speaks only English.
We're on a play too.
Play too?
Yeah.
Okay.
So those students who speak only Spanish can always go back to the aide who speaks the Spanish part, and the students who speak English go to the other aide that speaks English.
We went to a model where we needed a Spanish-speaking teacher in each classroom and an English-speaking teacher in each classroom. So the children would have the experience of speaking both languages. Many of our teachers speak a variety of languages, and we try really hard to place the child with a teacher who speaks their language. But if we can't get that match, then the teacher really works with that child to make sure that there's activities that are not language dependent. So that child really feels part of the classroom and feels safe to practice with English, and make sure that the parent knows that their language is really important and part of that child's learning.
Both of the teachers are monolingual. They have a little bit of Spanish, but they're monolingual. So all of the assistants in the classroom speak Spanish. So the teachers will teach it in English, and then the assistants support in Spanish as well.
Brian, ¿quieres hacer este?
Teacher.
No.
Teacher.
¿Quieres ir a jugar otra
Let's
vez?
do Little Red Riding Hood.
No. ¿A dónde quieres jugar?
Little Red Riding Hood. Teacher.
We're starting to clean up because we only have 4 more minutes.
Do you want me to help? Yo quiero trabajar con mi amigo.
Emma speaks primarily English. When she started preschool, when she was 2.5, she spoke only Spanish. And then as she started in school, she started speaking only English. So when we started here and we saw that they had the dual language, we saw it as a great opportunity to put her and immerse her in only Spanish, when learning different subjects like language, the shape names, different things like that. We really wanted her in the Spanish program so she can learn and speak it more at home with us also.
Families are our first informants. So I think the first thing we have to do is really have a dialogue with families about how language is used, what language is spoken in the home, what their goals are, their aspirations are for their children's language, how they feel about home language and English acquisition, etc.
When parents enroll, they tell us what the language of their child is. So they fill out something called a home language survey, and it asks what language is spoken at home, what language does the child use most frequently at home, what language do siblings use at home, and if any one of those is a language other than English, that is a flag for us that lets us know that another language is spoken.
One of the major prerequisites for teachers, all teachers, but particularly for teachers that are working with dual language learners where they don't know the language, is their disposition to learn about the culture, to learn about the child, to show that warmth and consideration, even when you don't know the language of the child and you don't know the language of the family, to go out and search for resources to help you, to find people that can help you understand the language and the culture of the child, to find a mentor that can help you figure out these things.
Open it. No. I'm not gonna leave you. He's outside. Lalo, ¿dónde está él? Lalo, ¿eh? Afuera. Afuera.
The research shows that having a strong foundation in the home language is helpful. If the home language is 2 languages, there may be 2 home languages, there may be 3 home languages. Having a strong foundation in those languages will help the child succeed.
I think we all, as a group, agree that we want to provide opportunities for children to learn content, to construct knowledge in home language.
Yo want to go en la puerta azul.
Sí, exacto. Por la puerta azul. ¿Cómo abres la puerta?
No child should have to miss the opportunity of learning because they're learning more than one language at a time. So we've realized how important it is for staff that share home language with the children that we serve to be able to build that concept learning in home language. It then transfers to the acquisition of second language very easily.
Y la prueba está en que ustedes pues están trabajando en su propio libro.
Bueno, mi historia es muy pequeña, pero es muy importante para mí, porque es del lugar de donde yo vivía.
One of the ways that the teachers can most help the child become a balanced bilingual is to help the parents understand that it's something to be valued and to let the parents know that they are really important in helping to keep the child's home language fluent, proficient, to help that home language development.
Marolas en la noche se ven impresionantes como fuegos artificiales.
Para mí la mejor experiencia fue ver a mi hijo emocionado viendo cómo hacía el libro. Pero ayer que estaba tratando de terminar el libro, él se puso conmigo y...
Teachers can give a message to parents about supporting the home language, both implicitly and explicitly. So explicitly, they can tell the parent about the importance of speaking in the home language.
Have you ever had this?
Implicitly, they can also give the message to the parents, if they are bilingual themselves, if they speak the child's language, by using that language with the family, with the child. I think it's very important to have a basic understanding of what the normal patterns of development are in all children, not simply English-speaking children, not simply monolingual children, but children from diverse backgrounds, cultural backgrounds and language backgrounds.
Well, bye.
I think there's a huge amount of work that has to be done among the faculty in understanding first language development, second language acquisition, how that impacts overall development, and what are the implications then for instructional practices. It's something that all of us have to infuse in when we teach child development, when we teach assessment, when we teach engaging with parents. We all have to be familiar and skilled enough at least to provide the basic foundations around that. The state of California have developed very practical strategies for enhancing both English language development.
I see a black sheep looking at me.
and specific strategies that you can use to continue the maintenance of the home language and the continued development of the home language.
One of the things that we've been hammering away at in general, not just specifically with dual language, but clearly this is important for dual language, is intentionality on the part of the teacher, where the teacher is very clear about what the goals and objectives are for learning.
Say it in a big sentence. I see cows. Can you say cows?
Cow.
So I think that for teachers, what they need to remember is that social interaction is very important for language development. Language exists so that we can communicate with each other. So that's how children need to learn language. They need to practice it in meaningful, interactive social contexts. That means interacting with adults as well as interacting with other children, with peers.
So for a dual language learner, specifically, language is very important to make them feel comfortable.
What do you think was on the other side, Denise? ¿Qué había en el otro lado del agua?
If the child is hearing their language being spoken in the classroom, if they are seeing pictures that represent their families or their culture in the classroom, that's going to present a more warm and inviting environment for the child to feel comfortable. So this safe and warm environment is fundamental to the socio-emotional development, which then in turn assists with learning.
老师，我告诉你是，我可以用心来说话。
你可以用什么来说话？心。你用心来说话。那你说说看，用心来说说话。
Elaborated language and extended discourse is something that is extremely important for children to learn language.
你的心说完了吗？说完了。可是我怎么都没听见啊？
用心来说话呀。
啊？
用心来说话，所以就听不见。
哦，用心来说话就听不见。
One of the things we have to think about is structuring classrooms and programs that allow for more small group activity, more individualized activity, so that the extended discourse can take place.
要是你用嘴说话能听见。
用嘴巴呢？用眼睛说得了吗？
不能。可是你能用心来数数。
For dual language learners, you would need to have bilingual books. For dual language learners, you would want to make sure that their culture is represented in the classroom through artifacts and through photographs and things of that nature. Clearly, you would want some representation of their language being used in the classroom, depending upon the kind of program you have, so that they can hear their language being valued in the classroom. You also need some adjustments in the pedagogical strategies that you're going to use. When you have dual language learners who don't know the story, then you might need to do a picture walk with the key vocabulary words. You may need to use props and visuals with them. Those are techniques that one would use with dual language learners.
Often staff will use books and storytelling with children in home language. They will make sure to ask open-ended questions. Again, that toolbox of developmentally appropriate teaching practices that they can implement and use to extend learning and build conceptual knowledge.
Acquisition of the two languages by dual language learners is different from the acquisition of monolingual children in that language.
¿Cuál es más? ¿Uno? ¿Cuál es poquito? ¿Uno o dos?
If the goal of the assessment is to learn what the child knows, and if we take into account that the child may know certain things in one language and not in the other,
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
Then we need to look at what the child knows in both languages.
Pero ya pone 4. Okay.
And then based on that type of assessment that gives us information about the child's knowledge and skills in each language, then we can make decisions about what to focus on with the curriculum, how we want to change the curriculum or adapt it to address the child's level of language development in each language.
We see a brown bird, a red bird, a yellow duck, a blue horse.
So those decisions can only be made when we have information about the child's level of development in each language.
No se va a caer la paz.
Assessment is really just, in its broadest terms, collecting information about children's development so it can help you make decisions, educational decisions. So it can be everything from language screening to determine what's the dominant language of the child to a very in-depth language evaluation to determine if there is a language delay that requires intervention. And that's a very specific purpose that is different from understanding what this child is bringing into the classroom so I can build my instruction on it.
你是最喜欢 L 吗？
我最喜欢。
你最喜欢这个？我还以为你会喜欢 B。
And so when you're working with a child who's a dual language learner, you're going to need to have somebody help you figure out what does this child know, what does this child not know, because you want to be able to think about their entire language development, their entire vocabulary, not just what you as an English speaker can perceive.
And then I think you need to develop and design, really at this point, design ways to gather information from people who are native speakers of your children's language and who represent that culture. So they're not just bilingual, but they really have cultural insights into what language and behavior mean within the context of that culture. And you need to, engage them as partners.
We create a portfolio for each child. We have both Chinese teacher and an English teacher. So we can understand and document every child's language behavior. Our Chinese teacher's native language is Mandarin, but their English pretty good. And they can freely interact with the English teacher whenever they see something or heard something and children speak in Chinese, during their planning time, they will share with their English teachers. So make sure the English teacher also on the same page with the Chinese teacher.
When we assess young children, I think it's also important to check our conclusions with families, because they can see how their child is developing. And is that child able to play with their peers, talk about what they want to eat, express their needs, things like that. So that parent's going to be able to tell us whether what we have seen in a more contrived situation around language development matches what they're seeing from this child in their everyday interactions.
Can I help you with it? Oh, look at that.
One of the things that teachers want to do is help the family feel like their background, their cultural beliefs are really valued by the preschool community. And so one of the things that they want to do is welcome the child's beliefs, the family's beliefs in the classroom, to celebrate those. And so knowing about the beliefs, knowing about the background, knowing about the cultural traditions can help start up a conversation, can help have the family feel welcomed into the community.
There are many ways in thinking about the curriculum to think about how parents and community members can contribute to the learning experiences. Having opportunities for the parents to come into the classroom, to read stories, talk about their family life, share things, especially if it's something that's not in the typical dominant culture.
In a classroom or a setting where the teacher is not able to address the multiple languages of the students, then I think it's really important to provide a lot of context in terms of materials that represent the children's languages. I would think that environmental print is a key way that you can include the children's multiple languages.
We're also talking with parents and asking through written forms, what are the languages spoken in the home? Who speaks those languages? How is language and literacy promoted at home? We use that information to be able to reflect families' home language and culture in the classroom.
Tiene alas. Y ¿quién tiene un nombre que
to create an environment that represents families, that's familiar and welcoming, to celebrate the diversity of our families.